This episode of Greenhouse Grower to Grower is brought to you by Westbrook Greenhouse Systems. Westbrook is a North American leader for greenhouse structures, heating, curtains, benches, and installation. Their track record of retaining long term employees means that you can trust them with your next greenhouse project. Whether you need a freestanding, gutter vent, peak vent, open roof, glass, or poly house, Westbrook has a solution for you. You can find them online at westbrooksystems.com, follow them on LinkedIn, or visit their booth at Mance, TPIE, Cultivate, TNLA, or the Canadian Greenhouse Conference. Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Hey everyone, we thought we'd take a different approach with this episode of the Greenhouse Grower to Grower podcast. When this episode comes out, our team will actually be out in California at California Spring Trials. And so we thought this would be a good chance to give everyone kind of a catch up on some of the internal happenings at Greenhouse Grower. For every print issue that we send out, for every online article that we write, for every video that we produce or podcast that we record, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. And as part of that, I want to tell you about some of the big things that we're working on right now, ways that you can get involved in some of these things that we're doing too. So I want to start off with California Spring Trials that kicked off earlier this week on March 25th. Our team flew out to California. And over 5 days, we have been and will continue to be visiting with several breeders coming in from across the country to see some of the new varieties that you're going to be finding in stores here over the next couple of years. It's pretty much a who's who of a lot of different breeders who are going to be there. And over those days, we'll be providing daily coverage to our audience, whether it's through articles, whether it's through slideshows and videos as well, kind of talking about some of the favorite varieties that we've seen, that we're seeing while we're there. I'm going to be out there along with Dr. A. Alan Armitage and Robin Sitberg, who's been a longtime member of the Greenhouse Grower family, who's got a lot of experience in attending California Spring Trials. So we'll be looking not just at what's happening out there, now in terms of new varieties, but also recording a lot of videos with some of the breeders and other folks who are there that we'll be posting after the event, looking not just at new varieties, but also some of the trends taking place in the market where you might be looking to see varieties headed over the next couple of years. I'd encourage all of you to check greenhousegrower.com for all the most recent updates during California Spring Trials. And you can also follow us on our Facebook page as well as our LinkedIn page as well. Also note that, not every breeder goes to cast anymore. And in those cases, we want to make sure that we're also bringing you some new varieties coverage from some of those folks in the market. One example being Proven Winners, who we'll be visiting with in late April. They have an event that's taking place in Michigan the last week of April. And so we'll be heading out there to check out some of their new offerings. And then later on this year, as you start by seeing what some of the breeders are highlighting this year in terms of new varieties, the next step comes field trials, in which universities, growers, and other sites across the country take those new varieties and really take a close look at them and to see how they perform in different regions. So as we get into the fall, we'll be checking in with some of those trial managers to find out, how some of those varieties are performing through anything from, heat to rainy conditions to whatever, and kind of get the sense of what some of their favorites are as well as what some of the consumer favorites are. Because a lot of these companies also host, plant lovers coming on site to let them know what they think is in terms of what are some of their favorite new varieties. So I encourage you to check that out later on in the year. Next thing I want to talk about is the Greenhouse Grower Top 100 program. This is a list every year that we publish that ranks or lists the largest greenhouse growers in the country in terms of environmental controlled environment square footage of production. It's a list we've been doing for at least 30 years now. How we put together the list is we start with a survey that's sent out to any growers that have qualified for the list in the past and could potentially qualify this year. The survey starts with asking about square footage information, but there's a lot more other information that we ask in that survey. Anything from some of the major challenges that the businesses are facing. What are some of the biggest opportunities in the past year so that they've taken advantage of? What they're doing in terms of investing in new technology, what they do about labor, transportation issues, any other concerns that are affecting how these top 100 growers operate. So if you think that your operation might qualify for this list, what you can do is go to greenhousegrower.com, search top 100 growers in the search bar, and the first story that you'll see there will provide more details on the survey. And we'll keep the survey open for probably another couple more weeks after we post this podcast. If you want to go in and fill it out. Generally, the list that we put out covers roughly anybody from about 500,000 square feet and up. So we know over the past few years, coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are a lot of growing operations that have expanded in size. So we want to make sure that we're not leaving anybody off the list. So again, if you think that your operation might qualify based on some of those parameters, please feel free to go to find the survey, fill it out, and we'll be posting results from that survey, both in print and online, during the month of May. So that'll give everybody something to look forward to in the next couple of months. One of the other big things that we have coming up is our Medal of Excellence program. This is a year-long program that culminates during our Evening of Excellence event that we host at Cultivate every year. This year's event is going to take place on Monday, July 14th. There's a few different awards that are part of the Medal of Excellence program. There's 3 that are specific to varieties that come out of, or I should say for the most part, come out of California spring trials. I want to use this time to talk about some of the other awards that we do present during the event. I'll talk about the first 2 together because they're kind of similar. One is for the head grower of the year, and one is for the operation or company of the year. We have recognized a lot of great growers and a lot of great operations in the past for these awards. Some of the things we look for an individual grower level are, managing your team the right way, innovation, looking for ways to try new technology, problem solving skills, communication with your team, leadership, both within your company and within the industry and within the greenhouse industry. A lot of that also carries over to the Operation of the Year award. Companies that are truly innovative are business leaders across this industry. That other operations can look to for guidance. Last year's winners were Tom Castamanga of Young's Plant Farm, and the Operation of the Year winner was Little Prince of Oregon Nursery, both outstanding growers and operations. The process for putting in a nomination is very easy. Just go to greenhousegrower.com/nominate. And on that page, you'll find really all the information that you need. You can go and fill out all the appropriate fields. We do ask that you provide as much information as possible because it does help us, really truly assess who some of the top candidates will be. On those pages, you can also find videos with highlights of this past year's Evening of Excellence event to get to learn a little more about, why we select some of the winners each year for the award. What we do after we receive all the of the nominations, we go through that list, and we have a committee that's made up of past winners of the awards, along with our editorial team and a couple of other folks in the industry. We get together, look at those nominations very closely, and then we come up with 3 finalists for each award, as well as one overall winner that we'll be the only ones that know about until we actually get to the Evening of Excellence event, which I'll get to again in a second. Another award that we launched a few years back is Technology of the Year. This is designed to recognize new innovation in several technology categories in the greenhouse, anything from lighting to environmental controls to automation to software, anything that helps growers become more efficient. We do encourage both growers and technology suppliers to submit nominations for that award. So if you're a grower and you're using something that you see has been a game changer for your business and could be a potential game changer for the rest of the industry, let us know by going in and submitting a nomination. Suppliers, if you've got a new product that you see as a game changer for the industry, again, please go in, submit a nomination, let us know how this technology could help growers become more efficient and produce higher quality plants. The nomination process is very similar to how we do the two grower awards. Once we receive all of the nominations, and again, please be as detailed as you can when you do submit a nomination. We have a committee that's made up of some very tech savvy growers in this industry, um, from a broad mix of operations, large and small across the country, as well as a few other industry experts. And again, we kind of go through those nominations, come up with a small group of finalists, and then an overall winner that we announce at Cultivate. So when talking about Cultivate, the Evening of Excellence event again takes place on Monday, July 14th. It's an open invitation to anybody in the industry. During the event, we highlight all finalists and then announce the overall winners for each award. So you can go to greenhousegrower.com to learn more about this entire program. You can also go to the Greenhouse Grower YouTube channel to see highlights of last year's awards presentation. It'll give you a really great taste of all the work that we put into the event and how it culminates and how we recognize excellence from across the industry. So it's always referred to as a very nice event. It's a nice way to wind down Cultivate as well. So we encourage you to join us this year and to submit a nomination. So the last thing that I want to talk about is an event that we recently hosted. In late February, Greenhouse Grower, along with our other specialty crop brands at Meister Media Worldwide, American Fruit Grower and American Vegetable Grower Magazine, hosted our 10th annual BioSolutions Conference. It's a conference that's all about biocontrols, biostimulants, biofertilizers, and kind of what are some of the emerging trends taking place in that segment of the industry, both from a research standpoint and then how growers are then taking those types of technologies and using it in new ways in the greenhouse and in the field. What you can do now is listen to my recent conversation that I had with Carol Miller. Carol is the editor of American Vegetable Grower, and she's also the conference chair of the BioSolutions Conference. And during our conversation, we talked about what goes on in terms of putting the event together, what were some of the key highlights from this event, and how we're looking forward for this industry that is really ever evolving and ever changing. So please enjoy that conversation, and we will talk to everybody again in a couple of weeks. So we just wrapped up 10 years of BioSolutions Conference, and as the conference chair, I just kind of want to get your takeaways on some of the key highlights from this year's event, some of the perspectives that you learned, and just in general, how the event went this year.
Well, one of the biggest things about the show is it's a really networking show. It's all about the people who are there. And the energy is just so high, it's exciting to be there. We added a couple things this year to really tap into that. And one of those was Solve My Problem.
Hmm.
So we gathered, issues that people are trying to deal with, and then other growers, would talk about what they're doing.
Yeah,
And it was typical of this entire event. We had to kind of cut people off because they wanted to keep going at the
sure.
end of every talk we did. And another thing we did is we did roundtables because you growers are stuck on your farms, or in your greenhouses and not able to really communicate with other growers all that often.
Yeah.
It's at events like this. And so let's really lean into that, make sure that people can really talk. So I sat in one that Matt Fortmeyer was helming,
Mhm.
and they were talking about tips on training, using biologicals and softer ways to grow to really recruit younger growers and
Yeah.
how effective that's been for them. And then the talk morphed into, well, what are some of the training tips you have? And
Mm.
so Costa Farms, Michelle Ocala was talking about one of the things she's learned is that you show people what a pest looks like in its actual size. I
Mm.
mean, how often do we get shown an aphid or a spider mite that is taking up half a page? And so when somebody who's never seen one before goes out into the greenhouse and try to, identify those and they're
Yeah.
tiny, They don't know how to do it. And so they actually do life-size images, so they learn how to look at that, and they
Mm.
loop to be able to look at it closer, so they get kind of trained on something like that. So those little tidbits that people are doing are kind of what makes leaving your operation and going to meet with other growers worthwhile. That's the kind
And
of
I like
you know?
And I like that approach too because, bringing in the solve my problem, bringing in the roundtables, it's a nice transition from, a lot of the agenda is very research focused. So you've got somebody coming up on stage and talking for a while about here's some of the latest research going on. And that's all great information too. Now let's bring it into the real world. I'm a grower in a greenhouse. How do I take that or apply that research to what I'm doing? And then to your point too, with the solve my problem, with, a continuously evolving industry comes continual challenges. So how do we navigate through these? How do we share ideas together? I think that's a great approach to take for an event like this.
Yeah, so, yeah, the quality in a show is all about the conversations you're having there, as well as the quality of the people that are presenting, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, Hopefully, every show you go to is gonna have high quality. I think ours, of course, I'm a little biased, is, we go a little bit above that because we actually have an interview with each speaker.
Mhm.
That expectation set the bar.
Yeah.
Um, and this is kind of behind inside baseball a little bit. I've spoken at events so many times over the years, and I've never had anyone set up an interview with me before to kind of
Mhm.
go over what's expected
Yeah.
and ask me about what I'm gonna talk about and try to drill down and really understand it. And, that's something we did this year.
Mhm.
We spoke with every single speaker. And I think that's really important because it lets people I don't know about you, but if I know someone's looking at what I'm doing, if it's something I'm writing or it's,
Yeah.
an interview I'm gonna have someone from, see me do what I'm doing, it raises, my expectations of myself. I
Sure.
try just a little bit further, and I think that really showed. We had to cut off questions after every single talk this year. So, like I said, I'm a little biased, but I think our content is also, the people who are speaking are also
Well, that's a
a
good
little
problem to
nice.
have too, because you have sometimes events where you have, your seed questions that you have just ready, ready to go just in case. But the
Right.
fact that you have to cut off questions because there's so much dialogue going on, that's great. I,
Yeah.
I think another interesting element about this show too is, a couple of things. You've got a mix of different types of growers there. So you've got the outdoor fruit and vegetable growers, you've got the indoor greenhouse growers, and there's things that they're doing differently, but then they can also learn from each other. And the same level, you've got some of the, less experienced, I'll say, grower when it comes to biosolutions and those who've been using, these products for years, bringing all that into the equation to put together an agenda that can meet the needs of any grower, regardless of what you're growing, where you're growing, and the experience level you have or you want to get to when it comes to biosolutions.
Let's be honest, that is a challenge when you're planning any kind of program.
Mm,
You have to be aware of just how diverse your audience is. And so it's one of the, what do we pick for general audience? And general audience's case includes everyone you speak about. And
yeah,
then we have the breakouts that are very focused on what type of crop they're growing,
yeah,
or method of production, I should say. Because in agriculture, how you grow is what you grow.
mm,
When it comes to like fruit and permanent crop, trees and vegetables that go in and out. But when you're looking at the needs of the audience, what I found, never dumb things down.
mm,
Never do that. We're an industry of people who wear 20,000 hats.
right,
You're if you're in a greenhouse, you need to be able to take over for a scout that's sick that day, or you need to be able to drive the forklift, or you need to be able to work in the shipping department, or you need to be, sticking cuttings. You have to be able to wear so many hats, and you have to work on labor and all of the reporting you have to do and the inventory,
yeah,
the shipping. Uh, you This is not an industry for people who are not smart,
mm,
you
sure,
know? So, so it makes our job in planning what we're gonna put on stage a little bit easier because we're gonna go for what's intellectually exciting,
mm,
you know?
yeah,
If we really focus on and I think the more detailed you get, the more intriguing it is.
hmm,
If you hear about, an idea someone has that they're passionate about, and it's not something that applies directly to you, but the method of what they're doing or how they're solving the problem gets you excited and starts you thinking about what's going on,
Yeah.
you know? So we do a mix of, yes, we have researchers up there, but we also have growers who are talking specifically about how they're handling something,
Yeah.
the speakers. And then we have a mix of 3 groups. So it's those 2 university researchers, the growers, and then we do have suppliers.
Mm.
Now, I have to admit, I have to give a lecture to all of those speakers about, threatening to take them off the stage. We won't actually do that. We may not
Right.
have again, about it cannot be a sales pitch. It just
Right.
absolutely
Of course. Yeah.
because they'll be, hurting themselves as much as, upsetting the audience. But they do have access to their R&D departments. And so we did have some R&D folks from these bigger companies talking about emerging technologies they're excited about. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Well, and you used the word passion a couple minutes ago. I thought that was a really interesting word to use because, it's clear that somebody who's coming to this event has to have a passion for going down this road because we know it's not going to be easy to, whether you're just getting into it or whether you're looking to evolve, it's not an easy process. You have to have the passion and the focus to say, I'm going to take, these steps to use this type of technology to the best of my abilities and to the best of our company's abilities. And that also ties into working with your team and training your team and getting buy-in from your team on how to use BioSolutions most effectively. So that passion has to be really evident for an event like this.
because even though we're getting into some technical stuff, what are you trying to accomplish?
Mm,
You're trying to have a marketable, high quality, can compete with everybody product that you can get out the door. And biologicals is a tool for that.
yeah,
It's also a marketing tool to your customers.
yeah,
Um, so they have to work. It can't, we remember all the snake oil stuff and the bug in a jug, concept. If you don't understand how a living, microbe or a beneficial insect actually behaves and what they interact with, you're not going to have success with it. And so
yeah,
that's why there's a need for this type of education. What is the life cycle of this beneficial and what exactly is it doing? And how can you can still use synthetics with biologicals. You just have to understand the life cycle and if
mm,
you're interrupting or if you're enhancing,
yeah,
you know, and you have to understand that by and large, most biologicals are preventative and not treating a breakout,
yeah,
you know. So that can make it tough on measuring how successful it is because if you don't have a problem arise, would you not have had it in the first place? Or are the beneficials doing their job for you?
yeah, yeah,
Um, So that's the complex part. But once you really get into it, it's kind of like skipping rope. Before when you're a kid, and you would have 2 people holding a rope and you're having to jump in. Getting the timing of getting in on it is intimidating. But once you're in, it's kind of easy. You just start, you just got the rhythm and you just keep going until you kind of get too tired.
yeah,
Um, I don't think that's the way biologicals are. It looks intimidating from the outside, but once you're in the stream, it's fascinating and it's fun.
yeah. Well, and a fascinating part of it too, as you look ahead to, whatever the next year brings for this event, the fact that you can already start looking now and say, okay, what did we learn this year? But then how do we take it up another level to next year? So I'd imagine you're already starting to think through some ideas. And then
Mhm.
we obviously, survey our audience who's attending there as well to get their own perspectives on what did they like? What did they want to learn more about? So that I'm sure that feeds into the planning for next year then.
Well, thank you for that reminder, Brian. Anyone out there has great ideas, please let us know. Because that's where it actually starts. At this time of year, I'm picking up the phone, and other people on the team are picking up the phone and saying, "What are you hearing out there? What's new? What's different? What are you excited about? And then on the flip side, what are you struggling with? That's kinda solve my problem."
Mm,
If we know where the pain points are, where the frustrations are, what's not working, then we can start finding out people who can address that.
yeah. Yeah.
So, so planning is just a lot of talking. I would
Sure.
say for every person we have speak, we probably had 25 conversations leading up to that person speaking.
Mm. Oh yeah, of course.
We get a lot. We'd put out a call for speakers, and we get a lot of applications. We probably, and it's a great assist, but we don't take everybody that applies.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be doing a service to anybody who attends.
Sure.
So one
Absolutely.
of one of the things that I always find, because I'm a science geek. I was a kid who got a chemistry set for my birthdays and a microscope and all that. Um, and I would go get water out of one of my neighbors had a greenhouse, and I would get some of that dank water and put it on a slide and watch all the little microbes. And then being a kid, I also put my Listerine in there to see what happened to those microbes. So,
Oh, yeah.
but we would have the emerging technologies, and so you're hearing about new things coming out that you've never heard of before. That
Yeah.
kind of blows your mind. Um, and since it's so new, it's just I don't know, I like coming across stuff I've never heard before. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's
Sure.
exciting to me.
And that's what helps an event like this continue to grow. And I'll say too, for anybody who's listening to this who wasn't able to attend the event, you can find more information both on greenhousegrower.com and then on growingproduce.com as well, which is the home of content from American Vegetable Grower and American Fruit Grower as well. There's highlights of the tour that took place right before the conference. And then there's more information on some of the other key highlights from the event and some of the key takeaways. So you can find a lot more information there. And as we start to look ahead to next year, keep checking back to the website for more. Because as you said, Carol, there's the process of planning for next year starts now, and seeing what we can learn for next year. So thanks for taking the time to join me today to talk more about the event.
Thank you. I really appreciate the chance to be able to talk about it.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.